And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off.
Go ahead and say it, Ed. Go Tigers!
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
You like that? You like that?
F it. Jamar's down there somewhere.
The New Orleans Saints select Marcus Davenport.
No!
Splash Brothers. Yeah.
It's playoff. Keep going, Brace.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Welcome to Chasing the Trophy Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Sanders, here with my boy Clay Williams, one of the Dirty Boot Sports boys and the producer. And we are coming at you with the episode 6 of Bounce Back Players for this season. And Clay and I are going to give some picks on players that were highly touted in fantasy last year that really didn't have an impact that we thought, and we think they might bounce back this year and might have the impact or more of an impact than they did last year. And really players that maybe not even highly touted, they just, were projected to do well last year and they just flopped. And we think some of these guys might bounce back and why they might bounce back. So we're going to take into consideration some player personnel, coaching staff changes around them, team changes, certain things like that might help increase their fantasy value for this year. But first, we're going to go ahead and jump right on into a word of prayer like I like to on every pod. And then we're going to do some of our sponsors, then talk about some of our upcoming pods, and then get right on into the meat and potatoes. So, Lord, just thank you for this opportunity to do this, and please just, just allow whatever we do and however we do it just to glorify you, Lord. And we just appreciate this opportunity to just talk about this sport and this extra activity that you've blessed and allowed us to enjoy and do. Because without you, we understand that nothing is possible, Lord, without you. And you allow everything that we have and enjoy and give us that opportunity. And just thank you for allowing us to do this. And if there's anything we can do to glorify it, we want to do that, Lord, in your name. And just please be with those sick and hurting out there, Lord. Just please be with them and put your hand on them and let them turn to you, Lord, and help glorify and testify in your name, Lord. And just thank you for everything you continue to bless us with. And please just let us lead and be a light and guide and direct in your name. Amen. All right, guys, so jumping right on to our sponsors, I want to thank Big Reed BBQ, Mimi's Children's Boutique, Doug DeMona Farm and Feed, Crown Detailing, and Championship Carts. And our title sponsor for this episode is Big Reed BBQ. Started as a family recipe in 1986, their mild flavor is right on time, and our spicy is just enough heat. Owner Ken Reed, Director of Marketing Andre Leonard say you can get their sauces at Doug DeMona Farm and Feed, Time to Shine Detail, the Salty Brahma, and the Equipment Store, and Amazon. Who doesn't have Amazon? Lord knows we have stock in Amazon from all that my wife orders. So if you got Amazon, you can find it there. If one of those local retailers in your area, go get you some Doug DeMona Farm and Feed. And go get you some, our life, but I'm still rocking because I'm on the hot spot. There's some bad weather. Go get you some Big Reed barbecue and get to barbecuing, especially with football season right around the corner. That way you can enjoy some good barbecue sauce with some good barbecue meats. So we appreciate Big Reed. They've been with us since the beginning. Y'all support them because they support us, and we really appreciate it. Next, so we're going to cover 3 hold on, before we do that, our next upcoming pod. This one's going to be a fun one next, guys. Clay, this is all Clay's idea, which I thought it was a great idea, thought that it would be a good idea to grade their Dirty Boot Sports snake draft. It's a 10-team PPR draft, and we're going to take each team at each pick and kind of give a grade A through F on how they did in the draft and our opinions and whatnot of those teams. So that's going to be on the next pod coming up. And then after that, we'll probably try to have a start, sit, sleeper pod and kind of a mini waiver pod all before the season starts next Thursday. So it's going to be a lot to cram in. I've got a lot of crazy stuff happening over the next couple of weeks. in my life, just with some church retreats coming up, a lot of church stuff. My son's starting flag football. So it's just a busy time, but we're going to try to cram those in there and try to make them a little bit shorter like we hope this pod will be. That way y'all can enjoy it. It's not as time consuming. So, but we appreciate everybody out there listening. That's what we got coming up. Go ahead, Clay.
Yeah, and just make sure everybody knows that this might be a little bit of a fluky pod, just because the weather is getting crazy outside. So hopefully we're getting through it with no interruption, but we should be all right. I should be able to work my magic and put it all together. And also with the rankings of the snake draft, spoiler, I am not number one. So that's pretty disappointing for me.
Yeah. Well, look, and like I will talk way more about that on the next draft. Like it doesn't matter it just matters how the draft falls. It just, I mean, there's very rarely like a perfect draft. They're just not, it just never happens. Somebody gets sniped or somebody reaches down and grabs a player that's good value way ahead of time, that you might have been trying to take advantage of, or, I mean, drafts go crazy in every which way. And, nobody drafts. I mean, very rarely is there ever a perfect draft unless you just got a bunch of yahoos, drafting all sorts of crazy and you just sitting there cherry picking all the good players in each round,
Yeah.
So, I mean, and like I said, we're going to talk about more of that on the next pod. Clay, you get me off track on this one. We're talking about bounce back players on this one, guys. So we're going to cover 3 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and 3 tight ends, each of us, that we think are going to bounce back compared to their production last year. Most of these are really based off the numbers and rankings and projections from ESPN and Fantasy Pros, is what both of us kind of go off of. I think Clay does more ESPN. I do a little bit more Fantasy Pros. But I do look at both. So that's what we're going to cover on this. And then I got a little tab here. We're still going to, we'll talk about injuries and updates on stuff like that coming up. There's been some contract situations that have been settled. CeeDee Lamb finally signed. Jamar Chase is not. CeeDee Lamb's coming back to practice. Jamar Chase did, and then he didn't. So, that's a state of flux, but there's really no concrete update. I don't think
Ayuk is sitting out again
this time. Oh yeah, Ayuk. But man, I'll be honest, I baked that into his production. Like in my opinion, I never really I think he is hard. If there's anybody that sits out to not play, I think it's going to be him. Yeah. I think he is in like Flynn, like he's dug in. I hope it's not a Le'Veon Bell situation, but I do fear that it could be another Jonathan Taylor situation where it goes a couple games in and either that he signs or they trade him. And they made it sound like they are not. Well, actually, they did attempt to trade him, but he turned down the 2 possibilities, which it's really confusing to me because if you're sitting out holding out, either you want money or you want to go to win, and he's at a team that'll win. But he wants money too. So it sounds like he wants his cake and to eat it too. And I don't think he's been that good of a wide receiver to have that yet. Like he has not been on that CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown level, Justin Jefferson level yet. Now, there's a lot of analysts and people think that he can get to that point, but I'm not sold yet. I got to see it. You know what I mean? And
yeah, I mean, he's a top. I would say he's like top 20-ish, top 15-ish, maybe. But I mean, yeah, 15. I mean, the Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lambs of the world are like top 3, top 5, no doubters.
And the word is he wants like some money close to that.
Yeah.
And it's just not going to happen. But the thing is, I think New England was going to give him that. And he straight up said, I'm not going to New England to lose. I'm like, dude, you're on the 49ers right now. You got a chance to win. You just got out the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And like, do you want money or do you want to win? Because you've had both opportunities and turned them down. So he wants both. And I don't know if he gets both. And I think the 49ers know that. So I worry about him, and he has great value if he did sign and came back where he's at. But I don't think that happens. And honestly, I think his value is kind of pushed up a little higher because I think he got drafted a little bit later last year. And I worry that he won't have the same production as he did last year.
Because he was more of like a 5th rounder last year, I feel.
Yeah. They're right there for sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking he was like a 5th-ish rounder last year. Now he's, 4th, maybe even 3rd in some drafts.
Yeah, late 3rd, I think.
Yeah.
So, but let's go ahead and get on into our quarterbacks. I'm gonna let you start, Clay. And
All right.
who's your bounce back quarterbacks for this year?
All right, my number one easiest choice, probably of any list we've done, Kyler Murray. This is a guy that we've talked about quite a bit, and we are both very high on. I know Kyler Murray, whenever he is on the field, he plays really, really good football, and maybe not as much for just your normal top five quarterback debates, but for fantasy football, he's really good. He runs enough. Does he have the rushing production of like a Lamar Jackson, Anthony Richardson? No, but he runs enough, and it looks like he's kind of gotten back to those ways after the ACL injury. So there's really not much to worry about with that. I love the offensive just scheme overall for him. It really just fits to every bit of his skill set. You add Marvin Harrison Jr. in, you get a full year of Trey McBride. The other guys around him who really knows. Zay Jones, when he comes back, maybe that's going to be a good thing. Michael Wilson, maybe Greg Dortch. Like, he's got some decent weapons, but really it's going to be the MHJ and McBride show. And another thing that's really important for, I guess, for fantasy quarterbacks, especially once you get out of that top like 5 range where it's a lot of like the best guys on the best teams in the NFL. Kyler's on a team that is not very good, and they're going to be trailing in a lot of games, and he's going to have to be putting up more and more fantasy points with a not very good defense behind him. So everything's just really set for Kyler to be a very good quarterback this year for fantasy, and I would not be surprised if it's like a top 5 season for him if he stays healthy.
Right there with you. He's my number one. Also, I'm going to jump in so we don't have to talk about him here in a minute. Exactly. Repeat everything that Clay just said. And another thing people forget about is the last time he had a healthy offseason like he did this one, he was QB2 the next year.
Yeah.
And I believe he's a lot better, smarter, and more experienced, and possibly with a better roster than he had that season. Because back then, he pretty much had DeAndre Hopkins and David Montgomery when he was not David Montgomery. Who was that guy that come out of nowhere from Iowa State? That was
David Johnson.
David Johnson toward the end of his time.
Northern Iowa.
Northern Iowa. My
there
bad.
We go.
Well, at least I had the right state.
Yeah, that's right. They were both Iowa guys.
That's right. So anyway, but yeah, so he had him, and so like, and that was when he was like, I think it was second season, maybe, or third. But like his talent, like he throws the ball well. He's going to get you probably 700 to 800 yards rushing, probably 5 to 7 touchdowns on the ground, and then probably he's got a decent chance at 4,000 yards. Like, he throws the ball enough and well enough, and he's got the weapons, like Clay said. I'm all about Kyler Murray this year, and he's going to be in a lot of negative game scripts. They're going to have to put up points to win, and if anything, they're going to be fun to watch. As long as he stays healthy, which I think he will, and he's matured that's the best way I can put it. He's matured because, there's a lot of issues with him and film and game tape, tape and all that in the past, but I think we haven't heard hardly any about that since. I'm all on board with Kyler. He's my number one bounce back player, probably of all my players on here. And you get him super cheap, 8th, 9th, 10th round. He's probably one of my biggest targets in all drafts.
Yeah.
So I'm all about it. I love that. I love that there, Clay. Go ahead. Who's your next one?
My next one is Kirk Cousins, coming off of an Achilles injury last year.
That's
not one you like to have, especially at the age that he is. But I do feel like he's in a situation where it's going to be good enough for him to go out there and succeed at a high level for fantasy. Weapons, he's had Justin Jefferson, he's had TJ Hawkinson, he had Dalvin Cook for a little bit. Like, he's had good weapons before, but now I just feel like it's just the best situation he's ever been in. You got Bijan Robinson at running back, who's an absolute stud, especially coming out the backfield to catch the ball. You got Drake London, who just feels like he's waiting to become an absolute stud in the NFL. I think that year might happen this year. Just needed someone to get him the ball consistently, and Desmond Ridder was not that. You got Kyle Pitts, who is the best tight end prospect of all time, but he just has not had anyone to get him the ball. So if there's ever a year for Kyle Pitts to happen, it's going to be this year. You also have Darnell Mooney, who we've talked plenty about, and we really like him. There's just a lot to like about this Atlanta offense. You're playing in the NFC South, which is not very good overall. Yeah, the Saints defense is still pretty solid, but I mean, at the end of the day, the Falcons are going to be very fine.
That's right.
And also, yes, Kevin O'Connell, very good coordinator. Yeah, he's the head coach, but he called all the plays for the offense for Minnesota. So you kind of do feel bad about him losing that. But you go to Zach Robinson, who's been in the McVay tree for years, been waiting on this opportunity. The Saints wanted him. Instead, he picked the Falcons. And I just think Zach Robinson's going to be an awesome offensive coordinator, and that you're really not going to get any negative from going from O'Connell to Robinson.
Yeah.
And it just really set up for Kirk to be really good this year. And he's going as QB like 15-ish, somewhere around there. So, I mean, he's going to be a backup that you draft, but you can probably start him on a good amount of weeks and feel pretty good about it.
16 on ESPN. Quarterback 16. And I'll tell you something. I only got one thing. I love it too. And honestly, I didn't pick him because I had a feeling you would, because I'm all about it as well, especially at his value and his weapons he has. You could almost argue that he has more weapons in Atlanta than he did in Minnesota. Other than Justin Jefferson being the better of all of them, and that might have competition with Bijan. But other than that, I think he's got more better averaged weapons in Atlanta than he did in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And so I like that a lot. But if you're going to have a player come back from an Achilles, it's going to be one that you're not expecting to run a lot. And that's going to be Kirk Cousins. Like, it ain't like he had arm surgery. Okay. Now, I'm not saying it's not vital, but it's easier for him to come back than a wide receiver or a defense. I mean, really anybody. I mean, even a kicker, because they're going to use that leg. I mean, I know he's going to plant it, throw this, that, and the other, but like, I don't know. I think it'll be okay.
Absolutely.
So I'm all about it. So who's your third guy?
My third one, I went a little bit down the board to kind of reach and have some fun with this one. I'm going Daniel Jones. QB 23, somewhere around there.
Might be the most hated quarterback in the NFL right now.
And rightfully so. Rightfully so. But if you think back to the last year that he played, that they won a playoff game, beat the Vikings, beat Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. He was not an awful quarterback at that time. Last year, everything was pretty freaking bad. He got hurt. He was constantly getting hurt. Backups were playing better than him whenever they got to play. It was just a very bad season. You got the Saquon Barkley just like time bomb that was just waiting to go off out of the locker room, out of the team. I think it's just going to kind of be a fresh start. I mean, you've still got you kind of have to have faith in Daniel Jones if you're a Giants fan because of the contract you gave him. So it's like, what else can you do besides go out there and let this guy see what he can do and see what he can prove? Brian Dable's still calling the plays. You still feel good about that. Malik Neighbors, as we've talked about, and as anyone from Louisiana knows, absolute freak. Looks like he's going to be the stud immediately whenever he gets on the field. He just got a number yesterday, number 1. He changed his jersey. That was the first ever retired number in NFL history, and hasn't been worn since like the 40s or 30s or something like that for the Giants. Whenever a rookie gets to get that number before he plays it down in football, you feel pretty good. You also have Wando Robinson. You got some other guys like that. What's this? Darius Slayton, who always performs. Daniel Bellinger as well. And Devin Singletary.
I mean, he's got options. They're not like going to be just that bad.
No, adding a Malik Neighbors makes that room look like okay for once, instead of Darius Slayton being the one.
That's right.
So I think it can work. And for Daniel Jones to be 25, I mean, like 25, 23, whatever his range is on the draft board. Go ahead. But and also with his rushing value, like he's going to run the ball a decent amount. It just feels like his floor can be pretty good. If you're looking for a fill in week to week, or even just a backup to a lower quarterback that you draft as your one. I think Daniel Jones won't be as bad for fantasy as he might be for the Giants in real life.
I could see it happening. I know, like, people forget his rushing upside's there. You cut out a little bit, so I don't know if you said that or not, but he's got some rushing upside. People forget he was like a top 10 quarterback like not long ago. Now, last year was terrible. Don't get me wrong, but the Giants were terrible. So, I mean, his offensive line has been one of the worst in the NFL in the last couple of years. So, I mean, it's not like it's just Daniel Jones' fault.
Yeah.
Even though it's getting all late on him because you're a quarterback, you get all the blame. But I'm right there with you. I think that's a great pick there, Clay. And if I cut out, you have my picks. That way you can kind of pick
I
up
got you.
what the okay. So just to help that, y'all, if I end up cutting out, I'm sorry, but I actually lost Clay just for a second. But anyway, so we already talked about Kyler. He was my number one, and then my number two, Geno Smith. A guy like going as 24 right now. That was the year before. I think he was like quarterback. I think he was like 3 or 4, something like that. The year before that, coming off a stellar year and really just tanked. But I think a lot of that had a lot to do with the Pete Carroll system. I'll be honest, because Pete Carroll's a heavy run guy, and I don't know, man. And they got a new offensive coordinator, offensive-minded head coach now. He's still got weapons out the wazoo around him with DK, Lockett, JSN, Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, Noah Fant at tight end. There's tons of things to be optimistic about Geno Smith, and he still runs a little bit. Like last year, let me see. Let's see. So he missed 2 games last year. But last year he had 155 yards rushing and a touchdown. So that was really, honestly, not how much I thought he normally did. But the 22, when he was high up in quarterback, he had 366 yards rushing on 68 attempts year before last, with 30 touchdowns, 7 picks. So that was a year he had 4,282 yards in 22. I mean, that's a solid, productive season. And that was when he, like I said, he was like top 5 QB. So I like Geno a lot to bounce back this year. Too much talent around him. And then offensive-minded head coach, I think, gives him a big boost. So I like Geno to bounce back. And then my third guy is Aaron Rodgers for the Jets. I mean, it's like there was so much hype and so much potential with him. I mean, the dude's 40. So if he don't do it this year, I'm out. But, I mean, he's coming back. He's got Garrett Wilson. He's got Breece Hall. Like, those two alone boost a quarterback so much. Like, it's ridiculous. So he had tailed off a little bit in his 22 season at Green Bay. He got out of there, but he still threw for 3,600 yards and 26 touchdowns. I mean, I think he can still come in a decent strength of schedule. I like him a lot. You still there, Clay? I want to make sure I'm not tripping.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, because I was like, man, I could be disconnected, rambling here, and then we got to start all over. Clay's gonna have to talk about everybody, but yeah, I like Rodgers bouncing back with Garrett Wilson, with Tyler Conklin at tight end. He's still got Alan Lazard there. People forget about that. He's got, so that's like his old faithful there. He's got another. I'm trying
Mike
to think
Williams.
of another rookie. Yeah, he's got Mike Williams, but I think he's not on the pup, but he's not back yet.
Yeah. Corley from Western Kentucky.
Yes. And anyway, he's a rookie, right?
Yeah.
Isn't he a rookie? Yeah. So, I mean, he's got some talent there. We don't know how Rodgers is. He's going to zone in on Garrett Wilson. He's going to zone in on Breece Hall. But then they got that rookie running back, Braylon Allen, coming out the backfield that could help supplement Breece Hall a little bit and make him a little bit, give some breathers there, and might not lose too much as far as athleticism. So I like Rodgers, and not to mention he's going to have a decent defense behind him to kind of turn the ball over and get him the ball a few more times.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about him in the weather of the Jets because he's been in Green Bay for all them years doing it. The weather's going to be probably about the same. I like Rodgers a lot.
Just don't tear that Achilles on that MetLife turf.
As long as he stays healthy. I mean, I think it's if he stays healthy, it could be easily another 4,000-yard, 30-touchdown season.
Yeah, and then you'd be crazy to expect anything less from Rodgers.
Yeah. I mean, he knows that this could be it for him.
Yeah.
And if as big of a competitor as he is, he's going to leave it all out there. There ain't no doubt. So, like Rodgers a lot. So that's my last quarterback. So let's go ahead and jump on into running backs, Clay. Who you got at running back?
All right. My number one, we're going to Green Bay. Not Aaron Rodgers' team no more, but with Josh Jacobs.
Love it.
I think Josh Jacobs is going to be awesome this year. And whenever we made this list, it was like, what, a week or two ago? And I think his situation's just gotten better by the day. Like
every day.
Like every day that goes by, I'm more and more like, I want Josh Jacobs on my football team. And I haven't gotten him yet in fantasy. So I'm hoping that I can in my league that I'm drafting Sunday. So spoilers to anybody if they're listening. Hopefully not. But yeah, Josh Jacobs, who 2 years ago was the best running back in fantasy, number one, and last year kind of a down year, as pretty much everything in Las Vegas was a down year. But he's going to Green Bay in a situation where there's no A.J. Dillon this year. He's out for the season. Marshawn Lloyd is already banged up with a hamstring, I believe. Like, doesn't really look promising for the first couple of weeks. Maybe he's back out there, but at the end of the day, is he really going to take touches from Josh Jacobs? No. So you're looking at Josh Jacobs in a Green Bay offense being the guy, and it just feels like he's due for 20, 25, maybe even 30 touches a game at some points. Like, I think Josh Jacobs is going to be a bell cow and going at running back like 15 right now, like third round pick maybe. Like, it's really good value you can get right now for Josh Jacobs, and I think he's going to be a top 10 type running back this season.
Yeah, see, he's done creep. Oh, nope. Sorry, that's in standard. Let's see. PPR. Let me go back because I had to refresh. Yeah, he's going 13 and 16 in ESPN, but 13 on others around pick 28. So he's done creeped up because I know when I first made this list, I think he was around like high 30s, like 38, somewhere in there. So he's done creeped up about 10 spots, which rightfully so, because like for all the reasons that Clay just said, he's actually my number two running back on my list. And so I'm going to just repeat everything Clay just said. I love everything about the situation. He's going to get all the opportunity. The only thing against him right now is his strength of schedule is the worst in the league. But you know what that means? That doesn't mean jack, really. I mean, it kind of does, but not really, because we don't know how any of these defenses are going to be when this season comes out. Like, we have an idea based off of last year, but it always changes. It never fails. Like, you look at his game, say he plays Detroit, Chicago, like they might have been good run defense last year. Well, this year they could have some injuries and they're not as good as they were last year. Like, that doesn't mean near as much. And especially with Jacob's skill set, catching and running the ball behind a way better offensive line than he had last year. I love it. So, great pick. Who's your next guy?
Now that I'm looking at my list, I think I'm going to do a slight change for my second pick.
Uh-oh.
And I'm going to go Kenneth Walker III. This is a guy that I have drafted, sadly, as my running back 1 in 2 leagues, because the running back market just didn't go as I wanted the first couple rounds, but he is my running back 1 in 2 leagues, and I really like him this year. I think he's a guy that can finish a top 10, maybe even higher in this improved Seattle offense. Last year he had some injury issues. Just, there was the concern of Charbonnet that really never panned out to anything, but it was mostly just injury and just overall a lackluster offense in Seattle. I think the improved offensive mind that's coming in there is just going to feel fresh, and I think Walker just has way too much talent not to be a really good fantasy running back this year. And going right about the same range as Josh Jacobs, and I think both of them can be guys that jump a decent amount of the guys that are ahead of them and finish in that top 10 range.
Yep. So ESPN, he's going the next running back up behind him. I love that, by the way. Around pick 43 on average. But he's got the 8th best strength of schedule, so that's got that for him. And people forget he is only 23, guys. He's 23. Okay. I mean, if anything, he's still getting better. Yeah. All right. Like, it was a little bit of a down year last year, like Clay said, but the other thing is they're talking about getting him involved in the passing game more this year because it's going to be a lot more offensive friendly scheme, a lot more pass heavy than it has been in the past, which you think, oh, well, they might not run the ball with it. Well, yeah, but he might get 3 or 4 more catches a game, and that'll jack his fantasy value way up as efficient of a runner as he is. So, love that pick all the way, which Clay and I have already talked about that. He told me when he drafted him, I was like, you might not be bad off there. With him as your RB1, you could end up looking like a genius because you stacked your wide receiver group, and then you end up with an RB1 at RB2 value, you know?
Yeah.
So I love that.
That's one of the things that I've seen from the drafts the past couple that I've gotten to do is like don't reach for a running back, because after that top 3, it kind of gets in a little bit of a shaky spot in terms of where you're drafting. So like don't reach for a running back. Get these 2-3 stud wide receivers in your first 2-3 rounds. And then just sit back and get a Josh Jacobs or a Kenneth Walker, and you're going to feel probably really good about that at the end of the year.
Absolutely.
And then, so my last pick, I'm going to go a little bit further down the draft board, I believe, and I'm going to go to Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is a guy that I just cannot give up on. I love him, and I feel like I always find a way to get him every year. He's in Minnesota with Sam Darnold at quarterback, and that's one of the reasons why I am going to lean Aaron Jones here, is because I don't think they're going to want to put a ton of pressure on Sam Darnold, and I think Jones is going to have that heavy workload. Now, how heavy of a workload can he get at like age 29, 30, whatever he's at now?
Yeah, he'll be 30. He's 29, but he'll turn 30 in this season.
Yeah. Now, that is a question, but I think you see Aaron Jones at like a 20-touch a game kind of guy this year. Todd Chandler will probably get some touches here and there, but nothing, I don't think, incredibly significant. And honestly, the touches that Chandler gets is probably for the better for Jones. Get him a little bit of a breather and let him be more of just your running back and everything like that. And we know the receiving upside that Jones has and always will have whenever he's on the field. I mean, last year he even had like some games where he would catch a screen for like 70 yards and just score it.
Yeah,
like he's just that kind of guy. I like where he's going in drafts. It's about like 6th, 7th round, something like that. So you can easily get him as your running back 3 if you're drafting pretty well. And I mean, I think he's got plenty of value where he's going. Now, yeah, it's not the best of situations and not really anything incredibly flashy. Like the highest I see Jones finishing this year is probably like running back 15. But at the end of the day, where you're going for a 7th round, 6th round pick, getting a running back 15 is like, that's pretty good in my opinion.
Yeah, and especially coming from where he was last year. He pretty much had an injury-marred season last year.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I was kind of looking at some of his previous stats. So he's only had more than 200 carries 3 times in his career. But he's always had a bunch of targets and catches. Does that continue here in Minnesota, or is Ty Chandler more that third down guy? Who knows? I don't know. I do worry about the backfield split, but if he's healthy, I mean, it's hard to argue with that, you know, because that's my thing is like, how long can he stay healthy? You know, he was healthy not last year, but the year before he played all 17 games. But you know, but the thing is,
another thing that, you know, doesn't necessarily have to do with fantasy or like it really doesn't have to do with anything, but it's something that you kind of just put in the back of your head and you're like, maybe this does change something. He's on a 1-year deal, getting cut from Green Bay, and Green Bay just bringing in another running back on a long-term deal. So, you know, he's kind of got that in his mind. Like, I wish, like, that should be me. That should be me in Green Bay.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that he's going to be a little bit more motivated this year. And, you know, if there's a small injury, like a ankle sprain that should keep him out for a week, he might try to push through that and play through it and just go a little bit harder to try to earn one more contract before his NFL career, you know, really gets towards the back of it.
Yeah. I like that. All right. Yeah, I like that. So my number 1, which I had Jacobs as my number 2. We already talked about him.
Yeah.
But my number 1, Tony Pollard. All right.
There you go.
I mean, it ain't much hard. It ain't too hard to bounce back from which, you know, last year projected as possibly the best player in fantasy and definitely projected as an RB1 by several people.
We had him so high.
Man, and then finished at 15. Okay. So now he finished at 15, and it's like, I don't know how to rank this guy because now he's projected to be like RB26 and RB29 in ESPN. And I'm like, I mean, I get he was at the Cowboys. He fell flat on his face, ended up finishing at RB15 still, though. And, like, he leaves there, goes to Tennessee, who signed him to a 3-year deal. All right? If you're signing a 27-year-old running back to a 3-year deal, there's no way you're not going to use him. Yeah. Like, that you don't believe he's got some of the tank. I know Tajay Spears is there. I get it. But I feel like they're going to use Tony Pollard as much as they've used Derrick Henry in the past, and then Tajay Spears is going to mix in just like he has been all the time. 10 to 12 touches, and then it's all Tony Pollard. And so you're talking about a 70-30 split probably, and Tony Pollard with his talent, they improved the offensive line tremendously in Tennessee, talking about it might be one of the best offensive lines they've had since Derrick Henry had a good offensive line whenever he rushed for like almost 3,000 yards or whatever, 2,800 or whatever it was that one year. Like, so he's going to have that. He's going to have the opportunity. Will Levis is there. He's still learning. He's going to throw the ball some, but they're not going to lean on him a ton. Now, I do like him, and I do think his wide receivers are going to benefit, but I think they're going to lean on Tony Pollard a little bit more than people think. And him going at 26 around pick 79 is just crazy to me. Like, I think there's no question he can return RB15 value. And people forget he was one of the most efficient runners the year before last year. Like last year, he was coming off that injury, that ankle injury he had at the end of 22. And like, I mean,
there was more reason last year that people were excited for Pollard than just Ezekiel Elliott's gone. Like there was people that had been waiting on that moment of Pollard to finally get his shine. And honestly, just overall, everything about that Cowboys offense outside of CeeDee Lamb just wasn't very good. Like it was the CeeDee Lamb show, and that was pretty much it. But other things to add on to this, Pollard. You know, speaking with the Spears situation, people are worrying if he's going to get more touches. You don't sign Pollard to this contract if Spears is about to become just like the solidified one, or like if you feel that comfortable in him to be that guy yet. I do think he's a year or two away from that. I mean, he came from Tulane. Like, you're not coming to the NFL in just year two. You're taking over. And then also, as you mentioned with the O-line, you got the offensive line coach from the Browns, which is the head coach's dad. Bill Callahan, I believe, is the O-line. Brian is the head coach. But one of the best O-line coaches in football, if not the best. I mean, we've seen what the Browns O-line has been the past couple of years, and I would be pretty surprised if he doesn't have a really, really positive impact on that Tennessee offensive line.
Yep. I mean, I like Tony Pollard this year. I'm trying to get him in every draft I can, dropping down if I need to, because I think he's a solid RB2 right now. And if for some reason he takes it, like if they use him even more, or he's more like that offense, I think is going to be good. If it's even more productive than what I'm thinking, I mean, you could be looking at low end RB1. You know, he could sneak in that RB10 range possibly, because he's going to catch enough passes still. Like, he's not going to be. I still think he's going to have a few more catches than Derrick Henry, because he's got that skill set. You know, I like Pollard a lot. That's my number one. Jacob's my number two. I'm not going to talk about him anymore. And then my number three, Derrick Henry. And you're like, how's Derrick Henry a bounce back? Well, he finished RB10, last year, which for Derrick Henry standards is kind of low. All right. Probably the lowest he's finished, let me go look, in quite some time. Probably year before last, which I think was that the year he tore his ACL or got hurt in 21, I think? Because he had 300 points 2 years ago.
I think he had an ankle injury or something.
And then he had 333. That was the crazy year. But anyway, and then he had like 294 the year before that. So pretty much he's been killing it for quite some time. Last year it was a little bit down, even though he played every game. But he goes to the Ravens with probably a top 5 running offensive line, a top 5 running offense for a running back that is probably one of the best the NFL, like as far as breaking tackles and just a pure bruiser. Like, I mean, you're talking about one of the best of all times. Like, you know, I mean, a real freak stud athlete that's going into a great situation in Baltimore, where he is essentially absorbing 2 running backs volume from last year. They let Dobbins go and they let Edwards go, and then they bring in Henry. And then Justice Hill is still essentially the backup, which there's all this talk about we're going to get Justice Hill the ball more. Dude, they got Justice Hill the ball last year, and it was like to the tune of 12 carries for like 23 yards. Okay? Get out of town. With that offensive line, no. Derrick Henry's going to eat that. all day, every day. So I think, and when you say bounce back, how does he bounce back from 10? Okay, so right now he's being projected an RB8 around pick 17. I firmly believe if Henry stays healthy in this offense, we're talking about RB5 or RB4 at the end of the year. Like, because I think there's like last year was one of the lowest touchdown production years he's had. He had 12 rushing touchdowns. All right. He had 13 the year before, 10 before that. Then he had like 17, 16. I mean, I think he gets back to around 17 or 16 when he was scoring 294 to 330 something points a game. Like, I think it's easy for him to get 15. We might even talk about like 18 touchdowns. Like, I don't know if everybody remembers old boy from New England that had like 18 and 20, like, or like a couple years. What was his name? Clay. This was probably junior high.
Wait, say it again.
What was that?
The
guy from New England way back. Like, all he did was score touchdowns.
LeGarrette Blount.
LeGarrette Blount. I mean, this is LeGarrette Blount, only faster and more efficient.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, again, already, like, I feel like you're talking about LeGarrette Blount touchdowns with, all, 1,800 yards of Henry. Like, everybody's talking about he's old. Like, he is a freak. Yes, he's 30. Yeah. He'll be 31. But if he falls off this year, yeah, maybe Father Time did catch him, but I just don't. It's just too perfect of a situation for a running back with his skill set for him not to succeed.
Yeah. There's no reason to ever believe that Derrick Henry's going to stop, honestly, until he just does. Until then, you just keep believing in him. And one of the things last year, it was a down year, but like so many of like the advanced stats where you could look at like the yards that he would gain before contact, it was like the lowest in the NFL because he was immediately getting hit when he got the football. In Baltimore, that ain't happening.
And then he still had some of the highest after contact.
Yeah, because he's a freak.
And so, and I forgot about these stats. I'm glad you said that because they talked about this on a show the other day. So they talked about that stat, how he was contacted so early and then had the highest after contact. But then Baltimore is like tops for the yards before contact.
Yeah.
So he's going to add yards before he gets hit, and then he's still going to have the yards after.
That's right.
So, I mean, you're talking about he's
going to be he might be near 5 yards per carry this year, and it wouldn't be a surprise.
I hope and pray I can get a wide receiver with my first pick and then him on my second. If he's there, that's a great situation for me. He's not always falling to that because he's going like around 9th in ESPN. Ninth at running back. He's going around 17, so sometimes I have that opportunity.
Yeah, people will reach a little bit, yeah.
I've seen people reaching for him, so I haven't always had that chance. But anyway,
I mean, with the running backs ahead of him, you really can't blame them.
So that's going to round out our running backs. Let's go ahead and jump right on into our wide receivers, Clay. Who you got,
man? Number 1, I got T. Higgins. Higgins, who has been in the news a good bit the past couple of years, trying to play for that contract. He's been under the franchise tag, that whole mess that's been happening. Going as wide receiver like 27-ish this year.
Yep.
Pretty low down there for like a 5th round pick. T. Higgins, very, very talented. He's kind of in that Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle range where it's like if they were anywhere else besides where they are, they're going to be like a top 15 wide receiver in fantasy. But they're on a team with one of the best receivers in football. All of them are. So it's kind of just a worse situation. But T. Higgins, I think that Cincinnati offense is going to really take a bounce back overall. Last year was certainly a down year. He had the Burrow injury. Everything just didn't feel right. And I think that Chase is going to eventually get back on the field. Is it not week 1? Who knows? But I don't think he's going to miss much. But whenever he does, T. Higgins is going to be the number 1. So that's another little bonus you do have. But I think T. Higgins is just going to be – I think he's just going to be who T. Higgins is. And that's going to be a really good football player and a really good receiver when he's on the field. It's just really going to be around, is Joe Burrow back? And I think he will be. It's as simple as that.
Yep. So T. Higgins is my number 3 for my list. And so I'm going to talk about him a little bit. It's hard not to come up from wide receiver 48, for one, because he missed so many games last year. And then when he wasn't, I think there was like 3 or 4 games he played the first quarter and then he was out. I remember because I had him on a team And they were like, "Oh, he's starting," and I was like, "Great!" So I started him. First play, T. Higgins limps off the field, questionable to return, never returns. I'm like, "Are you serious?" Like one play, you know what I mean? Like, and so it was so frustrating. He's healthy, like you said. Jamar Chase is still all he is doing is getting more chemistry and more comfortable with being the one with Joe Burrow, and that's what honestly a lot of Chase's. I mean, Chase is an excellent wide receiver, but a lot of his success has been tied to Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all that chemistry they built up through college. And T. Higgins is gaining ground on that. And T. Higgins, those other guys you mentioned, Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, to me, T. Higgins is the most talented of those. Because I think he's got the build and the speed.
Absolutely.
Like he has all. Like Waddle has the speed, and Smith has the size, but not really the muscle, but the height. But Higgins has got both. He's kind of skinny, but he's big, and but he's only 25, guys. And I mean, the value.
He kind of just feels like a vet at this point.
Well, I mean, he was 2 years in a row. He was drafted in the top 15.
Yeah.
Okay, at wide receiver. Now he's at 28. Nothing has changed except for Burrow is pretty much feeling good and healthy, he said.
Yeah.
And Jamar Chase is out.
Yeah.
Like, he's coming back, but, like, he came back to practice. Zach Taylor's like, oh, yeah, he'll play. And then he skipped practice yesterday and today.
Yeah.
So Zach Taylor today was like, I don't know what's going to happen this day today. I'm like, oh, Lord. So T. Higgins is like, dude, take it to the bank while he's – and then even when Chase is out there, like, we've seen Burrow support both of them. As long as Burrow's in there and T. Higgins is healthy, I'm confident he's going to be a top 20 wide receiver.
Yeah.
No doubt.
I agree.
And you're getting him that late, so love that pick. Now, I'm going to let you go ahead and get your next one, but I won't talk about him, so I won't talk about him in a little bit.
Yeah. All right. My number 2 is another guy that I'm pretty sure we have similar feelings for, Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson is going about wide receiver 30, somewhere around there.
35.
Yeah, I mean, oh wow, he's even farther down the board than I expected. So that's looking at like a 6th, 7th round pick, something like that. And I just love the opportunity for him this year. Deontay Johnson, he's kind of like an Aaron Jones for me, where it feels like I always find a way to have him on my fantasy team, and I always will believe in him. Whenever he was in Pittsburgh, certainly didn't really have the best of situations with quarterbacks and offensive scheme, and just pretty much everything was a negative for Pittsburgh the past couple of years. But whenever Deontay plays, it always felt like he was just very consistent. You could always count on him to get about 7 catches, about 60 yards, something like that. His one downfall has always been touchdowns, but even last year you kind of saw an uptick in that towards the end of the year. I think in Carolina, with Bryce Young at quarterback, who obviously has a lot of talent, I think he's going to become a very good weapon for him, and they're going to form a good bond, as they should. And you got the Canales hire at head coach, who I think is just going to make Young and this offense overall look even better. And Deontay's got no reason not to be the one for this team. Adam Thielen's there, but I mean, he's built to be a 2. I don't think you're going to see much from Xavier Leggett or Jonathan Mingo this year. Really no threat at tight end. Running back, not really much of a threat overall, especially pass catching wise. It's really going to be the Deontay Johnson show for this offense, I feel. And he's a guy that I've targeted in every league that I've been in. And for the value that you can get him at, wide receiver 35, like, I would not be surprised if he's a top 25, top 20 guy this year, just because of his value and volume that he's going to get. I really like Deontay.
Completely agree. Easiest strength of schedule right now for a wide receiver.
That NFC
like
South.
you said, you never know, but the easiest strength of schedule for a wide receiver. And like you said, all the opportunity in the world. I love that value and that pick. I wish it was a little bit better quarterback situation.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, definitely somebody that you should be looking for toward that end of that round. I mean, because you could be talking about a flex with a floor of 12 to 14, maybe 15 points a week just off catches and yards. And that's a floor. Not to mention you throw a touchdown in there here and there or something. I
mean, this kind of happens with these bad teams. Like these
that's right.
Receivers just have to get the ball, because like even in the NFL, on a bad team, at worst, this quarterback that might not even be good in your opinion might throw for 225 yards a game just because it's just gonna happen.
Yep.
Like, it's just gonna happen. And who else is gonna catch the ball? I think Deontay is gonna catch the ball a lot. So that's why I like this value so much for him.
Yep, right there with you.
My number 3 is Terry McLaurin. I mean,
Scary Terry.
Who doesn't love him? Like, everybody loves him. Everybody feels like he's one of the most underrated in football. Like, he's just so good. Where's he going right now?
He is going right now. ESPN has him around 34.
Wow.
He's 31 average and around pick 73. He's my number 1, by the way. But you go ahead and keep talking about it.
I mean, that right there tells you it all. It's a guy that is the solidified number 1 weapon in this Washington offense. Jahan Dotson's gone. That threat has been wild. Like, I mean, people thought he was going to be fighting McLaurin for the 1, and now he's just gone. I mean, your number 2 is going to be Zacchaeus, maybe. You did sign Noah Brown. I don't really feel comfortable about that because I think Noah Brown's a good player, but I think McLaurin still, at the end of the day, is going to just rise to the top because he's an awesome talent. Like, McLaurin can be a top 15 receiver in this league.
Dude.
It's just, can he have someone that can freaking throw the ball to him? And I think Jaden's going to finally be that guy for him. There's just no reason that McLaurin doesn't have his best season of his career this year.
Yep. I'm going to drop some bombs on you quick because I was looking at his stats. So he's my number 1. All right. 4 straight seasons of at least 1,000 yards receiving. 4 straight. All right. 4 straight of at least 75 catches. All right. But he's only got 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. And then, all right, so you got that, right? I mean, that's low for somebody with that volume, first off. And then you got to think about all the quarterbacks he did that with. Like all Sam Howell, who was
Taylor Heineke.
Taylor Heineke.
Maybe some Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah. I mean, Kirk, I don't think he was there with Kirk Cousins.
No, I think Kirk was gone, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we can't even remember the guys that were there with him, right?
Yeah.
And I mean,
Jacoby
now
Brissett for a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. So Jaden Daniels is one of the best deep passing quarterbacks coming out of the draft, and really, a lot of analysts have said probably one of the best in accuracy in the league right now, starting a quarterback compared to some of the others. All right, and then Terry McLaurin is one of the best deep ball catchers in the league. You put those two together, I mean, it's just made for big plays and just success. And like we just talked about, Jahan Dotson's gone. He was vulturing touchdowns in the end zone from McLaurin all year last year. I mean, I think he had 10 touchdowns. And I remember every time I turned around, I was like, man, where's McLaurin,
Yeah.
I think he gets with, like you said, with Daniels coming in, I think he gets on track with that. And at this value, a wide receiver 1, he's going around some of these wide receiver 2s. I mean, he's going around pick 73. Give me Terry McLaurin as my wide receiver 2 if I had to do that. I mean, honestly, you get him at your flex right now as a wide receiver 3. But he is a wide receiver. What's crazy to me is you got Amari Cooper going at pick 54, 20 freaking almost 20 picks ahead of him. And I'll take Terry McLaurin over Amari Cooper every day right now.
Yeah.
So I love Terry McLaurin. He's my biggest bounce back. And really, it's just the best situation he's been in yet, to me, as far as quarterback and offensive line. I think they're going to throw the ball a lot more this year than they have in the past because they got Jaden Daniels, which I say that, but they threw the ball a lot last year with Sam Howell. But, I mean, it wasn't, I guess, as efficient as you would like it to be.
Yeah.
But I think Jaden Daniels can turn that around. Not only that, but Jaden Daniels rushing upside and proud, the attention he will get from corners and safeties is just going to help Terry McLaurin get open even more.
Yeah.
So,
and another little thing to add to that, if you look at, so you go to ESPN's little cheat sheet that they give you, where they show the top 300 players. If you look at tight ends, Washington's tight end is ranked 31, so you're not really seeing a threat there. If you look at receivers, you got Scary Terry at 36. And then you do not see another Washington receiver in the top 90 for receivers.
Yeah.
That right there tells you everything about how Terry's supposed to be in this offense. Yep. So you're getting one guy in the top 300 players of ESPN that's going to be catching the ball. How do you not love that volume?
Yep. Love that pick. So that's going to make my wide receivers go quick because I had Terry McLaurin as my 1, and then T. Higgins as my 3.
Yeah.
So I only got one guy to talk about, and that's going to be Chris Godwin. I mean, honestly, we've been kind of predicted it for the last couple of years, and if it doesn't happen this year, maybe he is starting to fall off.
Mm-hmm.
But he was supposed to be moved to the slot last year and ended up not happening. I can't remember why. I don't know. But this year, this new offensive coordinator coming in said that he has seen it, the numbers, and that's also why they drafted the rookie Jalen McMillan, because they knew he could play on the outside successfully because he did in college, and not another slot wide receiver. So Godwin could go back to the slot. So they're expecting him to play in the slot this year. Decent strength of schedule. He's still 28. He's not quite to that 30 yet. Baker looked good in the offense. He looked good with his team. Mike Evans is still out there on the outside, causing chaos. Man, I really think Chris Godwin gets back to it, possibly gets back to that, right inside or right at that wide receiver 20 range. Right now, he's going as wide receiver 35 around pick 78. This team throws the ball a lot. Like Baker threw the ball like a lot last year. Like Rachaad White is who he is as a running back because he caught the ball so much. Mm-hmm. And I think they're going to throw the ball a lot more again. So I think that Baker is competent enough to support Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Rachaad White, no problem in that offense. And I like Chris Godwin a lot. I really think he's got a decent chance at being around wide receiver 20. And that's if Mike Evans doesn't fall off for some reason. You know, maybe he ends up being a decoy out there because he slows down enough not to be as productive. Who knows? Yep. I don't know. But Chris Godwin in the slot has been money. He was like a T. Higgins when he was in the slot before. And round 15, I don't know if he gets there with some of the talented wide receivers we got, but I definitely think he could probably get in right in that top wide receiver 20 area if he gets back in the slot almost full time like they're saying he's going to be. And for going around wide receiver 35 and pick 78, I think it's a great value and a great bounce back opportunity for him in that offense.
Yeah, I mean, just another year with Baker. And there really wasn't ever any doubt of Baker coming back. Like they solidified that pretty well. So it's just been an off season of them just working together and getting ready for this season, knowing what the offense is going to look like. And I think that's just going to make everybody more comfortable. I mean, we saw Mike Evans look really good last year, but that's just Mike Evans being Mike Evans. Like he's going to work with anybody. He's a freak. And I think Godwin being another year with the same quarterback is just going to elevate his game a lot.
Yep. So that's my wide receivers: McLaurin, Godwin, Higgins. Just to go over that, and then Clay had McLaurin, Higgins, and Deontay Johnson. So,
that's right.
All right, let's go on to tight ends. Who you got at tight end there? I got a feeling one of us is gonna have overlap on this one guy. So
probably. My number 1, I got Kyle Pitts. How can you not? Like, pretty much everything that I said about Kirk Cousins and how I feel about this Atlanta offense pretty much goes right back to Kyle Pitts here. Kyle Pitts is one of the best tight end prospects ever, and he just hasn't had the opportunity with Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heineke, just bums at quarterback, to be honest. But Kyle Pitts is going to be, I would say, very good this year. Like I don't know how high of a ceiling we can go just because we've never seen him in the NFL like be a really good tight end yet. But I think Kyle Pitts is going to be awesome. What you got?
Well, all right. So we have seen his potential his rookie year. I think that was with the shell of Matt Ryan left. 68 catches for 1,000 yards and 1 touchdown. Everybody got so excited his rookie year. One of the few rookie tight ends to ever eclipse 1,000 yards in the rookie season. Not many have ever done that. That's why everybody was blowing up. And then old Debbie Downer, Arthur Smith comes into town. Matt Ryan's gone. Arthur Smith comes in, and we get which I think he had some injuries too, if I'm not mistaken, but 28 catches for 356 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, we all thought, he's going to get more touchdowns, and then he's going to have about 70 catches for 1,000 yards, and he'll have about 6-7 touchdowns, and he's going to be a top tight end in fantasy for years to come. And Arthur Smith said, poo poo on you, pretty much. So then the next year, we're like, there's no way he ignores his talent and his ability. And so we're like, a lot of people jumped in on him again. 53 yards for 667. 53 catches for 667 yards and 3 touchdowns. All right. So then we're like, man. So now what happens? Arthur Smith is gone. All right. Unfortunately, he went to Pittsburgh, which that's a whole other story. But now we got this really good offensive coordinator coming from the Rams, who we have seen the Rams use their tight end a lot. Literally put Tyler Higbee on the map for somebody that, is probably a little bit overrated as far as his athleticism. But, a stable, low-tier, like bottom tight end one in Tyler Higbee. And now we get this extremely athletic tight end in Kyle Pitts. You can't tell me that these guys not going to come in here and be like, oh, we about to scheme some stuff up for this guy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, all right, not only that, we got 1 touchdown in year 1. We got 2 touchdowns in year 2. We got 3 touchdowns in year 3. Uh-oh. We should expect at least 4, right? Statistically, but I really think he's going to get more than that. I think he's like at least a 6-7 touchdown guy. Kirk Cousins ain't no dummy. He knows to look for his big guys in the red zone. And he's going to see the talent of this guy. He's going to throw it up for him. The only thing is he's got to stay healthy. He's 23 years old, but I love the opportunity. There ain't much else to say other than this. He had 1,000 yards. It's easy to see that again. He has tight end 1 upside easily. Yeah. If everything goes right. And you can't say that a lot about many tight ends. There's like 4 or 5 that you could say have tight end 1 upside, and that's about it. But he is going 63rd overall around tight end 8. And he truly has tight end 1 upside with his ability. So love that pick there.
Yeah. My number 2 is a guy that won't even be playing for a couple weeks, but we're going TJ Hawkinson. I just feel way too good about the talent of TJ Hawkinson. Whenever he is on the field, he's awesome, pretty much. I'm not really sure how high he finished after his injury last year, but I'm sure he was still probably around a top tight end, like top 10 tight end.
Tight end 3.
He finished at 3?
3.
Wow.
Yep, because he only missed the last 2 games.
Okay.
He tore it in week 16.
Hawkinson's going to bounce back from that injury, and he's going to be exactly the guy that he always is. What I like most about this pick is where you can draft him. You can draft him in like the 12th round, and I think that's just way too low for this guy, even if he misses 4 weeks. As we just said, he missed 2 weeks last year, and he was the number 3 tight end in football. And there's no really reason to expect him to be much less without Kirk Cousins. Most tight ends pretty much stay the same regardless. And I really see the same happening for Hawkinson this year, if not even more, with a quarterback like Darnold that's just looking for a safety net. So it's a bit of a weird pick, but I think given where you can get him, it just really feels right.
He definitely deserved to be talked about because it's like you said, as far as he's going, they're expecting him to miss. I think he's on the pup, so he misses at least 4 games. I don't think he misses more than 6, 6 or 7. Especially
what O'Connell keeps saying that like he hasn't been able to do whatever, but he says what's the word he keeps saying, that he just looks incredible physically. So like you feel like whenever he fully gets that clearance to give it a full go, that there's really not going to be any hold back for him. And like once he gets on that field, he's going to be TJ Hawkinson, which is I think he can still be a top 5-6 tight end this year, even with 4 games missed.
Yep, love it. Yep, I'm right there with you. I think absolutely the exact same thing. And if not, just pair him with somebody, a later round guy.
Yeah,
get you mediocre production, and then when he comes back, you got a top 5 tight end the rest of the way.
Yeah, you can draft Hawkinson in the 11th or 12th. When you've already filled out your lineup and gotten backups probably at most positions, and then draft a Tyler Conklin, Cole Kmet, Kate Otten, like someone that can just, get out there for a couple weeks and play okay. Like, I think that's a strategy that absolutely can work if you miss out on your guy at the very top. My last one is a guy that, hey, you might can pair up with Hawkinson. I'm gonna go Jawan Johnson. Going to New Orleans, not even the number one listed tight end in New Orleans right now on the fantasy rankings because of the Swiss Army knife of Taysom Hill. But Jawan Johnson, whenever he plays, it's always pretty good. That's how you're gonna look at Jawan. He's got a lot of talent. He's got that big athletic build. And his number one issue has been he always gets hurt. But I think it looks like he's back healthy now. He's fully going on at practice and everything, and in an offense that really doesn't have a lot of pass catchers. And unless the Saints, go out there and get one of these talented receivers that have been cut, but it doesn't look like they are.
We're not smart enough for that.
Yeah, of course not. I mean, there's a realistic chance that Jawan Johnson has the third or fourth most catches on this team.
Yeah, maybe third, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, depending on whatever you get from Kamara, but you could absolutely see Jawan Johnson catching more balls than Shaheed. Now, Shaheed will have plenty of more yards, but Jawan Johnson can be that guy, and just as long as he stays healthy, going around tight end 20, you can get him for free, pretty much.
Oh no, he's going tight end 34. He's not even listed on ESPN. Around pick 272.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, that right there, you draft Hawkinson, put Hawkinson on IR, and then you pick up Johnson.
Yeah, yeah. So definitely, I mean, he's getting drafted right around there with Darren Waller.
Okay,
who retired?
There you go.
Darren Waller retired, and you're drafting Jawan Johnson right next to him. So yeah, I think that's a great pick. He's definitely a sleeper, and like you said, maybe you take a flyer on him. And pair him with Hawkinson, and him get you by until Hawkinson comes back. So
that's right.
Great.
And then maybe trade Johnson then at his peak value.
That's right. Yep.
Because there's going to be no better weeks for Johnson than the first couple because he's actually healthy.
Yep. So yeah, I like that a lot. So all right, well, we already talked enough about him. Number 2 is going to be Mark Andrews, a guy that finished tight end 11 last year because of injury. I think he's got at least one more good year in him. The guy, he just can't quite seem to stay healthy. Last year, he only played 10 games. Year before, 15. Then he played 17 the year before. But what's crazy, the year that he played 17 and 21, 301 fantasy points from a tight end, 107 catches, 1,361 yards, and 9 touchdowns, guys. That kind of potential just does not, it's not going away. Now, is that what I'm expecting? Absolutely not. But I don't think he's going to finish tight end 11. He's going around tight end 3. I get it, but I think he's still worth that value. That's why I think he's a bounce back. Not saying that I'm not saying that he's going to exceed that. I mean, he's still got that tight end 1 value, like I told you about. One of the few, like Kyle Pitts, that has that tight end 1 value. I think Andrews still has that in this offense. They let OBJ go, who was really a big contributor on their offense, even though he only played 50% of the time. They let him go. They got Zay Flowers. They didn't really bring in any other wide receivers other than Nelson Aguilar, get out of town. So I think they're going to lean on Mark Andrews again. He's healthy coming into the preseason. I don't know. I really can't remember why he missed so many games toward the end of the year. But I don't think he had surgery because he's literally hasn't been questionable or anything in the offseason they got a questionable tag. Let me see what they're saying.
Yeah, I really forget. I don't think it was anything terrible.
Oh, he's questionable. It's an undisclosed injury. Harbaugh said he's going to be fine. Called his absence from practice, which was a week ago, minor. No update since. So, he was in a minor car accident on Wednesday the 14th. And I would imagine it probably has something to do with that.
I remember
but either way, that was on the 19th. No other updates since then. I got a feeling there ain't nothing to update because if he wouldn't have been at practice or something would have happened, we would have got some more information. I just like him. I still think he bounces back from that tight end 11 last year. That's why I want to talk about him. And honestly, I could not find a ton of tight ends that I could pick as bounce back candidates because for the most part, most of them seem like they've been going and producing where I think they will. but he finished at 11, and I feel like he's going to finish higher than that this year. Probably more appropriate around 3 where he's being ranked. So I like Mark Andrews in Baltimore still.
Yeah.
And then my last one, which is one, honestly, I don't feel as good about, but the only way he can go is up, and that's Pat Freiermuth. Finished at tight end 30 last year, okay? Now, he missed 5 games, but to finish at tight end 30 is really hard, even though you miss 5 games. Like,
yeah,
dude, he finished lower than Juwan Johnson, and we just got done talking about him and his injuries. And, like, he literally finished lower than Juwan Johnson last year, which is crazy because he is probably a top 10 talented tight end in the league. Like, I mean, literally, he's right there as far as athleticism and talent with, you know, some of the best ones that are like Jake Ferguson. You know, you can't really say Trey McBride or Kincaid because I think they're a little bit more athletic. But I mean, he is that type of tight end. He is right there with those guys, and he's right here getting drafted around pick 15. I mean, tight end 15 around pick 130 in an offense where he very well might be the number 2 option in the passing offense. Yeah. Like you got George Pickens, and then you got Freiermuth, and then you got Russell Wilson throwing the ball, who's not bad. The only wild card to me is Arthur Smith. We've seen him put tight ends in purgatory like Kyle Pitts. I hope to do that. I don't know, but I don't know if he has that option because he has nobody else to throw the ball to. You got Van Jefferson, and then you got Calvin Austin, and then you got the rookie Roman Wilson, who has been okay, but like they're saying Calvin Austin's going to probably start over him.
Yeah.
So, like, there's nobody proven else, and Freiermuth has already been proven. Let me go back to his last couple years. So the year before last, 148 points. He had 63 catches, 732 yards, only 2 touchdowns. The year before that, he had 7 touchdowns with 60 catches, only 497 yards. So, like, he had 151 points that year. So he was being around 150 points, and we just thought he was going to take that next step because one year he had no yards, he had the touchdowns. The next year he had the yards and no touchdowns. We were like, oh, he's going to put it together. Then last year, 30 catches for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just completely disappeared. I don't see that happening again. Quarterback play's been a big problem for him. Even if we got Russell Wilson, great. It's still an upgrade. If we get Justin Fields, even better because we've seen what he did with Cole Kmet in Chicago. So, and he is right there on that Cole Kmet level. I mean, he is that athletic, you know. So, man, I just think Pat Freiermuth's a great value. I think he's somebody you draft and then pair him with T.J. Hawkinson because you get him so late. You don't even have to spend a lot of capital on him, and I think he's got a lot of upside. You can only go up from that spot. So I like Pat Freiermuth a lot, and he's my last tight end that I think bounces back this year.
Yeah, I like it.
But that's our list, guys. Clay will be putting the graphic out on these guys on the Facebook page for y'all to catch up on if you missed any of them. But we appreciate everybody listening. Thank y'all. Thank you to our sponsors. Please go out, like, subscribe, download, on whatever your platform of choice is, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, whatever it is. Go out, find us, like, subscribe, give us a good rating, comment, let us know what you want to hear more of, what you don't want to hear more of. Just give us some kind of feedback. And we really appreciate everybody out there listening. We appreciate our sponsors. We're going to be coming back at y'all with those draft grades on the Dirty Boot Sports Draft on the next episode. But we appreciate everybody listening. Thank y'all, and y'all keep chasing that trophy.
All right.
This ain't how it's supposed to be. It should be just you and me.